Welcome everybody. Kia and welcome. Um, I'm Martin Brook, Professor of Applied Geology at University of Auckland, and I'm just running this on behalf of the Geoscience Society of New Zealand tonight. And it's a big welcome to Professor Sian Davies-Vollum. She's Deputy Dean from the University of Northampton in the UK and also Chair of University Geosciences the UK. Now, Sian, along with colleagues, has recently set up the UK Geoscience Strategic Alliance with the aim of reversing the decline in geoscience enrolments in the UK and other associated issues. And like New Zealand and also across the ditch in Australia, there's been a marked decline in recent years in geoscience enrolments for lots of different reasons, and people debate it, obviously. So the Geoscience Alliance in the UK is hoping to deal with some of their issues, which are somewhat related to ours, but there are sort of contrasts as well, I think. But anyway, Sian, it'll be over to you in a minute. I'll just say, first of all, if we could put questions into the chat and then we can put them to Sian at the end, that's probably best. And everyone's muted, which is fantastic. So Sian, over to you. The floor's yours.
Thanks very much, Martin, and to Geoscience Society of New Zealand and to Jenny also that's facilitated this and for inviting me to talk to you today. So as Martin said, I'm going to talk about something we've been working on really for the last 18 months or so, the Geoscience Strategic Alliance. We've been developing that in the UK to bring together geoscience industry, academia, professional bodies, and educators to collectively advocate for geoscience. So what I'll do, I'll give you a little bit of the background in terms of University Geoscience UK and some of the work that we've done, some of the data on recruitment into university degrees, and then talk about how we've developed this alliance and where we've got to so far. We are still quite in the early days, but hopefully you'll get a sense of what we've done and what we're hoping to achieve. So I'll leave lots of time for questions. It is being recorded, I believe. I just wanted to note that. So there's opportunities for catch up. I'm happy to talk to people outside of the meeting about what we've done. And without further ado, I will get started. So I'm talking to you today as chair of University Geoscience UK, and that is the organisation that represents geoscience in higher education. And it's one of the co-founders of the Geoscience Strategic Alliance, or UK GSA. And I would like to start by acknowledging my colleagues who are on the UGUK executive, and those who have previously been on the executive for the work that they've done towards the Strategic Alliance. I do have to stress this is a consortium and a collaborative effort. It's not just me. So it's very important to say that. So the work that I'll share in that presentation is attributable to the whole exec. So the poster I've got here, I don't know if you've seen it before. It's been co-produced by the Geological Society, University UK, Geoscience UK, for Global Development. And it's a poster that's gone out to schools and colleges all over the world. It's in multiple languages now. And I put it here because it really does a good job at illustrating the critical and the wide-ranging role that geoscience has in securing a sustainable future. Now, we're all aware of that, obviously, but not everybody knows how critical geoscience is to our sustainable future, and that's really a part of the Strategic Alliance's work. Related to that, and as Martin has noted in New Zealand, we've had a problem in the pipeline of UK geoscience graduates that have the core skills that really support this geoscience for the future. We've had a decline in the number of undergraduates studying geology, geoscience, earth science. I'm going to refer to the term geoscience today, but that means I am encompassing, including all of those terms. So I want to show you a little bit of the data that we have around that drop in numbers and associated loss of geoscience degrees. bring you up to date a little bit with the current situation and where we are, because it has stabilised, but at a sort of lower level of recruitment than there was 10 years ago. And then I'll go on to talk about some of the actions that we had related to that to try and stop that decline and the development of the Strategic Alliance. So, graph here shows the number of students entering, so first years entering geology and earth science degrees. The data is from the UK Higher Education Statistics Agency and the University and Colleges Admissions Services. We've got two lines because of a little bit of a change in how degrees were categorised in the UK. So in red, we've got number of those entering geology degrees. So this is only for UK students. It's not for international students, but it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. For all modes of undergraduate, all modes of study. After sort of the 2020, so there was a change in coding, so we can't dig down directly into geology. But you can see that big drop off from 2014, 2015 down through the COVID years. The blue is the line that we have to sort of work with now. And that has a broader, it's the same idea, it's UK domiciled students entering earth science degrees. So it does include oceanography, meteorology, it's broader. And you can see it has more of that uptick. But that geology as a whole, geoscience has not really had that same uptick, and it's sort of remained at that kind of low plateau level, or maybe up a little bit. So the reasons for this decline in students studying geoscience degrees has been debated and written about at length. I'll point you to a number of articles in Geoscientist magazine, which is the magazine that the Geological Society of London produces. The rationale for decline in numbers has been negative perceptions of geoscience, a lack of understanding about what it is, the fact that it might be associated with dirty and environmentally unfriendly industries such as coal and oil, that it's old-fashioned, it doesn't have anything else to tell us, that it lacks diversity, which is true. In the UK, a change in the way that students studied subjects between the ages of 16 and 18, which was given sort of less choice and less opportunity for those subjects, such as geoscience, to be experimented with or tried out at that in that 16 to 18 age of studying. Drop in number of 18-year-olds in the UK, but at the same time, we had a rise in the number of those going to university, so those tend to cancel out. Economic challenges faced by university and cuts to those courses that are more expensive. So a whole suite of reasons have been put forward for this drop. And in truth, it's a mix of all of those. So I wanted to show you a little bit about the current status of our university enrolments. UGUK did an informal survey of our members about a year ago. Key findings, the good news is that we've seen a stabilisation in the drop of numbers and in departments, and some have seen a little bit of an increase, but that's probably due to the fact that we've had some courses close. But we still haven't sort of stabilised at the level that we were saw students entering geoscience degrees in 2014, 2015, 2016. In terms of course closures, there's concern that those courses that have closed have been in what we call our modern or post-92 universities, and those tend to be the universities that are maybe widen participation, take students with slightly lower grades, so they tend to be a greater diversity of students. So there's talk about a ghettoization of studying geology and geoscience and restricting it to the top universities, and thus limiting access and diversity. And we've also lost specific degree types, especially around geophysics. There's quite a concern in the loss of geophysics. And there's a trend of master's degrees closing as well. In terms of our curriculum, and this is important because it determines the skills that geoscience graduates are coming out with and going into the workforce with, reduced numbers of residential field days, reduced optionality and flexibility in degrees, more environmental content, which isn't a bad thing, but it sort of represents the way that degrees are going, degree mergers, and maybe when you've lost a degree, you get a specialized pathway within a much broader degree, again, which is not a bad thing, but it's just to sort of show you some of the changes. So I'm going to pause there and do a little bit of a shift and think about some of the things that we've done at UGUK and Geological Society, and more broadly then the Strategic Alliance, to try and address this. So I'm going to talk about the responses and some of the activities that we've done. Okay, so go back 5 years now. University Geoscience UK work quite closely with the Geological Society of London. We have historical connections, and we got together and came up with a strategy for exciting, engaging, and retaining students in the geoscience. And this was kind of the low point of enrolment around 2020, and also COVID and all those challenges. So UGUK had 4 areas of activity that we wanted to work with and develop. We wanted to develop a schools link, a better schools link, industry connection, consider accessibility and diversity, and then, and this is key to the Strategic Alliance, think beyond geoscience, so influence beyond our geoscience bubble and have more of an influence in policy and government. So I'm going to talk about each of these 4 things, and then I'll focus on that last one, that influencing beyond geoscience, because that's how the Strategic Alliance developed. One of the things that we did, or the main thing that we did to influence schools, was develop the Teach Earth project. So we wanted to make teachers and pupils at school more aware of geoscience, and to help science and geography teachers understand that some of what they actually teach is geoscience, because it's not necessarily badged as geoscience. It might be embedded in biology, physics, geography classes, and those teachers often don't have that experience in geoscience. So there are I don't know how it is in New Zealand, but there are very few classes in schools that are taught as or represented as geoscience or geology, but it does get taught in subjects across the curriculum. And as I've said, often my teachers that have no or very limited background in it. So we wanted to understand where these geoscience touch points were in the curriculum, and then find ways to badge them. So we did some mapping. There were a couple of teachers, and one of the members of the exec led this project. So we were sort of mapping in our 14 to 16 curriculum, and then 16 to 18 curriculum, where the touch points were for geoscience. And then we worked with our members to create associated teaching materials. So often they were already there, and colleagues were using them as outreach, but we sort of collected them and created this portal that students can use, teachers can use, sorry, to draw down resources. They're all badged with the Geological Society and UGUK, so it's very clear that these are geology and geoscience. We host this on a UGUK website, and we that's also linked to the Geological Society. So that's the one thing we did around schools. We didn't want to sort of replicate going out to schools and outreach. We wanted to create a resource that was clearly went beyond teachers that were teaching geology or maybe physical geography. So that was our schools part of the strategy. The next thing we did around industry, and I don't know if you have these in New Zealand, but in the UK we have degree apprenticeships, which are an alternative route to completing a degree while working. So it can often be a choice for those with lower socioeconomic backgrounds that perceive, that the cost of university is a barrier to studying a degree. So we developed with industry a geoscience degree apprenticeship. So this means that an individual would be working in a geoscience role while earning a degree at a university. Um, we This is now in place. There's a whole process of that's an industry-led board that develops this, and I acted as the academic advisor for that industry board. Develop a standard or a set of a curriculum, really. And then this year, we've got the first university in the UK, Keele University, is going to be the first provider. So this is an alternative route into studying geoscience. Next thing we did was around enhancing accessibility and diversity. So to try and remove barriers to EDI, we know that geology and geoscience is not diverse. It's one of the least ethnically diverse subjects in the UK. Doesn't attract very many people with disabilities and tends to be something of a middle class domain. I think it also suffers from the perception of what geologists look like. There was a publication by Steve Rogers, who's at Keele, and colleagues. It was published in Earth Science and Society, and they did a survey of the general public of what they thought a geoscientist looks like, and it was a white, able-bodied man with a beard. So, we do have some issues around perception. And we do need our community to be diverse, and we do need different voices and different skill sets and different background in there. So we developed some workshops that we delivered in over the last few years, and worked with other groups who are really trying to address diversity in geoscience. So we've looked at inclusive fieldwork, decolonising the curriculum, virtual fieldwork, and have a number of resources around that. And then finally, influencing and raising awareness of geoscience. So the fourth activity was to try and influence outside of geoscience, influence decision makers, policy makers, government. So every year UGUK has an AGM and thematic meeting, and we decided in 2023 that the way to try and address this influencing and raising awareness, I worked on this with the former chair of UGUK, Nick Core, who's at the University of Portsmouth. So we want to have a thematic meeting around policy and how we can influence government and policy, how to engage with policymakers, how you can connect to calls for evidence, consultations that the government puts out. And again, I'm not sure how that relates to New Zealand, but this is the sort of UK experience. So we held this event. We had a number of speakers. One of them was Dr. Marie Cowan, who is the head of British Geological Survey in Northern Ireland. She gave an inspirational speech on the need to work collectively and have a collective voice, and ways to link beyond our geoscience bubble. And the idea of the Strategic Alliance was born based on her inspirational speech. She is one of our steering group members for UK Geoscience Strategic Alliance. So that was kind of a big sort of pivotal point in November 2023, which is now, as I say, 18 months ago. So what we decided to do was to work with the Geological Society and to have an event to launch this idea of a Geoscience Strategic Alliance. So this vision was to build a collection and alliance of stakeholders from across the UK geoscience sector, so that brought together industry, that brought together academia, professional bodies, people that engaged, people that worked in geoscience in all sorts of different ways, to work cooperatively and collaboratively, because geoscience is a small subject. And we saw pockets of really good practice going on in different organisations, but the sum of the whole we felt the sum of the whole had a much bigger impact than those sort of small scale projects and initiatives. So the idea is to bring together all of this geoscience expertise and experience, to change negative perceptions, create influence, and establish a widespread understanding of geoscience as being key to UK society, economy, and sustainable future. So we held this event, it was nearly a year ago now, May 2024. It was hybrid, so we had about 60 people there in person and then others joining us online. I presented a similar talk to this. Dr. Marie Cowan revisited the inspirational talk she'd given to UGUK and gave that again. We had a panel discussion with a number of influential geoscience talking about the future of geoscience. Lots of discussion and Q&A to develop this idea, and a bit of a workshop about who we needed to reach out to and who were those key stakeholders that we wanted to influence. So that was last May. Lots of enthusiasm, lots of energy for this, and as I said, that was our vision going into the meeting. So the next step to sort of come out of that meeting was that we developed some sort of key goals and outcomes from that. So the objective was to really create a steering group then for that strategic alliance, so we could bring together colleagues, individuals from across the geoscience sector to take forward that idea. So we established a steering group through an expression of interest that was sent out to everybody that was at the meeting, but also sent out by the Geological Society, and we invited expressions of interest, and then we looked at those and followed up with inviting individuals to join a steering group. Our rationale really was to try and get as big a breadth of expertise, so we covered all sectors in terms of type of organisation, whether we're in industry or academia or professional body, but also to cover different aspects of geoscience, so geotechnics, energy, basically bring together everybody in the same place. As I say, so representation across the sector. We needed to develop and really think about our objectives following that sort of big grand scale vision, and come up with terms of reference, which I won't share with you because it's multiple pages and we've been back and forward with it, and we've just about got it down now. And then to think about developing working groups for more focused work. So there's a steering group, and then work is going on, and we're just starting to develop these working groups to really think about the story that we tell, to think about the numbers that we need to tell that story, and to navigate and take the alliance forward. And I've got a web link there, and I can put that into the chat afterwards. And that's an article that came out in the Geoscientist magazine. That's the magazine that the Geological Society produced, and it basically summarises what I've said. It came out last summer, I think, or last autumn. But it's a good overview if you want to kind of connect back to what we've done, and explains the May date in a lot more detail. So bringing you up to date on the current status. So we formed a steering group. We've met a number of times now. We've got a chair for the Alliance and for the steering group, and that's Professor Ian Stewart. I don't know if you have heard of him. His expertise is geoscience communication. He's done some TV series, so he's familiar with media, and it has got connections to UN, and it's really quite high profile. And we've also worked with Lord Robert Mayor, who is chair of the House of Lords Science, Technology and Innovation Committee, and he has a background in civil engineering, geotechnics, so he's agreed to be an advocate, which is quite a big step forward for geoscience. As I said, we developed our terms of reference, so we're very clear about what we're doing. That's very important, and to get everybody on board, understand we're working with although we're all geoscientists, we're in different roles, different organisations, maybe have different focus. So it's important to bring everybody together and got them on the same page. We've made our first submission to the government. It made it to the House of Commons Science, Technology and Innovation Committee. They had a call for Under the Microscope, which was really asking for where we should put science focus. So we developed a response to that around geoscience, and we asked for the investigation of the economic, social and environmental value of, I'm reading this, of geoscience to key government policy and strategies, and qualifications for and numbers and spatial distribution of the jobs needed in geoscience. So it's basically, the call was about where we needed to put science focus and emphasis. And then we're UK GSA, as our abbreviation is. We couldn't call ourselves GSA because that's Geological Society of America. So UK GSA in the process of forming, as I said, 3 working groups, and they form the foundation of our work. One around numbers, one around narrative, and one around navigation. So narrative is focusing on the stories and the narrative that we tell about the significance of geoscience. Numbers on the hard evidence underpins the story. Data on economic, environmental and social impact. Navigation is the development of our sort of strategy, thought pieces, thought leadership, and the expectation is that we will have an output that is, goes beyond a policy brief, but a number of outputs that we can share with government and beyond. And then I'll finish, because I said I'd talk for about half an hour, so I'm about there, with a draft of our vision pathway. I wanted to put this into an infographic or a visual. You can see that we have, our 3 working groups on providing the evidence, the foundation for work that's going to support a campaign and provide that underpinning evidence, the foundations, as I said, around how geoscience supports people, prosperity, and the planet, and then how that reaches civil society, media, government, education, and industry. You'll see the key thing here, one of the key things is funding, and that's something we're still struggling with, and how we develop as an organisation, because at the moment we don't have any specific funding, and all the person power and capacity is voluntary. So I'm going to finish there. I hope that's okay, and that's giving you an overview of what the situation is in the UK, where we've come from, other aspects of work that UGUK have done to address the pipeline of geoscientists and the perceptions of geoscience, and then specifically the development of this strategic alliance and how that has evolved over the past year. And I think the last thing to say is that there is big interest in this. We've got people that are really want to be part of the working groups. We had to have some discussions with some of the charities such as GSL, because we can't be seen as being really a lobby group, because that then infringes rules that charities are bound by. So we had to sort of tread carefully through that, have some negotiations around it. As I've said, although we're all geoscientists, we bring different perspectives, different focus, different backgrounds. So there's been a lot of discussion to really make a cohesive and collaborative group. I can leave that slide up there, or I can stop sharing my screen, whichever you think would be best.
Maybe just leave it, Sian, for the moment.
Okay.
And that was great. Thanks for that overview.
You're welcome.
No, it's great. Now, have we got any questions? There's no questions in the chat, but has anybody got any questions they want to pop to Sian? I've got a couple myself, but I was just going to wait and see. Here we go. There's one from Chris Presdy. Sian, can you see that?
I can't see the
okay.
chat or anything when I'm sharing my screen.
Right.
I mean, I think I can maybe pull it up.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I can read it out
Oh,
for
I
you.
can. Yes, I can.
Great.
Yeah, I found my.
So.
Idea for funding. Yes, and I think that funding is going to be related to a lot related to energy transition, because that's the big area. Obviously, the alliance represents more than that, and a lot of the initial interest actually has come from geotechnics because that's the other big area. But energy is one of figures highly in the government industrial strategy. Although there's been some political shifts around net zero recently in the UK, but that might be where it comes from.
Yeah, energy seems like the big, yeah. Is there any other questions at the moment? Okay, I've got one. Just with the timescales, Sian. So obviously funding's important to get, reports together, for Parliament, also the House of Lords. But and
Mhm.
you've got time along the bottom there in that grey area. I mean, do you think this is going to be a few years in in inception to kind of, producing output? Or I mean, what's your sort of
No, I
timeline?
think it might. I think it might be. I think it might be quicker than that.
Mm,
Because we do have the people and the expertise. It's that funding and um, having and bringing on board or being able to pay for expertise related to media and production of resources. But I think the big thing was getting the influence and some really key individuals that showed that we meant business, I
yeah,
think,
yeah,
if you know what I mean. And we've done that. Um, but yes, the next barrier is going to be funding. But I think there's a good momentum. Now,
yeah.
what's interesting is whether this is something that it is in place for 5 years, and then we think, okay, well, we've done what we needed to do, and we don't need to continue because there are organisations like the Geologists Association and the Geological Society of London that act as a sort of overarching organisation, and one of the I won't say the challenges, but one of the things that we've had to do is really convince some of those organizations that it is important to come together, and yes, they're doing great work, but and this doesn't mean that we're not appreciate the sector doesn't appreciate that. It's
Mm,
just because we're a small subject area, small subject compared to, I don't know, engineering, that we
mm.
that that we do need to come together to make this happen.
Yeah, I wondered because I know in New Zealand there's a lot of outreach work gets done by different people, often on a piecemeal basis, and I
Yes.
think that's not probably as economic and maybe strategic as it could be. And I wondered if that was an issue you've had in the UK, and it's one of the reasons the alliance was set up.
Yes, yeah. And one, I have to say, actually, when we had the event last May and we did the workshops around, who should we influence, there was a big voice, a big call for, well, we need to go out to schools and we need to do outreach. And we said, no, that's not what we need to do. We need to have broader influence than that. And that is important. And the Geological Society have good programs for that. They do outreach to schools. They have geoscience ambassadors, not countrywide, but they do that good work. We set up our UGUK had set up our Teach Earth resource. Universities do outreach. That's not what this is about. If you can influence a you know a local politician or a head teacher, you're having far more influence than going into a classroom and you know getting a class of school kids. Well, so
Mm,
this is about influencing people who have influence, people who have impact in policy, in what's taught, in understanding the significance of geoscience to the economy, to the environment, to society. So there've been a couple of conversations we've had to say, no, 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 we're not about outreach to schools. It's important, but other organisations do that, and we need to think bigger and broader.
mm. Okay, no, that's interesting. Have we got any other questions for Sian at all? No. Okay. Well, I mean, that's probably a good note to end on that. We need to influence the influential people. as well as
Yeah.
the grassroots stuff. So top down as well as bottom up seems kind of the way to go. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah,
and it's grassroots is important, but we would be replicating what was going on, and you know you can go out to schools and you can do great outreach, but if the curriculum is not really badging geoscience or doesn't have isn't creating the skills and the understanding that would get students interested or young people interested in going to study geoscience and therefore create the pipeline of experts that we need to fill jobs in energy or geotechnics, then you know you, what's the point? So it is having that bigger vision piece.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, unless there's any other questions, I think we'll give Sean a big thank you, and we'll see what comes of this, and what we develop here in New Zealand, this side of the planet, and it'll be great to see you down here one day, Sean.
Well, I did get to go to, I'd love to come again. I was in the North Island, so I have been to Auckland when I worked for the semester at sea program. And so I
Ah,
spent a few days in the North Island.
right.
Um, I will share a PDF of this that you can share, and I'll put the link to the geoscientist article that I mentioned as well. I'll send that through, and I'm happy
Wonderful.
to talk. Have you know, or have somebody come and listen in on one of our steering groups, whatever. Happy to share because I realise this is something that is not specific to the UK, although there might be different, there might be nuances depending on which country you're in.
Hmm.
There are multiple countries that are having this um, challenge around ensuring that we create or we have geoscientists that can do the work that geoscientists do in the future.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, I really appreciate it, Sean, and you have a great day, won't you?
Thank you very much, and all of you. Yes, it's the start of the day for me, so enjoy
Yeah.
your evenings.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No, thank you very much. Okay. Bye bye, everybody.